CS2 will soon replace CSGO, and although it's sad, I know that it means we're going to get years and years of new updates, maps, operations, and God knows what else. But even considering all of that, I can't get one question out of my head. Is Valve ever going to give us a new gun? Okay, before we go down the rabbit hole of a potential new gun in CS2, I gotta talk to you guys about our latest series, Into the Dark. We partnered up with our friends over at Crack and Rum to tell you guys some of our favorite stories involving esports' most iconic risk takers. It covers a wide range of scenes, including CS, so make sure you check out the link in the description if you want to see more. Alright, so ever since CS2 was officially announced, data miners have uncovered some crazy shit hidden within the game's new code. But while much of the community awaits new knives, skins, and nade koozies, I have become preoccupied with another. A potential new gun. Now, we'll get into whether or not Counter-Strike 2 actually needs a new gun very soon, but it's important to know that it's been a very long time. Counter-Strike hasn't received a new weapon since the R8 infamously dropped in the winter 2015 update. Now, before anyone brings up the MP5 SD, that is not a new gun in my opinion. That does not count. The MP5 has always been in the game. This was just them bringing it back in a updated way. Regardless, it's been a long time since Counter-Strike received a new firearm or even piece of utility. Sure, random crap always gets added to Danger Zone, but nothing in standard matchmaking. So the question is, does CS2 need a new weapon? And if so, what does that even look like? Well, we could spend all day going through Gabe Follower's Twitter to find conspiracies of a rocket launcher finally coming to Counter-Strike, but since Valve loves putting things in their code that never see the light of day, I'll believe it when I see it. So for now, let's talk about what it would actually mean for Counter-Strike to get a new weapon. And let's get the obvious out of the way. Making a new gun in Counter-Strike is no easy task. As much as we all love watching those creators who add and test out new wild guns, it's obviously not that easy. Counter-Strike is a carefully balanced tac shooter, and even adding a single gun or piece of utility will disrupt the dynamic of the game in a very big way. I mean, with the switch to MR12, Valve is already going to have to make changes to the game's economy. An entirely new weapon is going to add even more variables, especially if it's a rifle. Now, just because it's a difficult process doesn't mean Valve shouldn't do it. I mean, the money they'd make off of skins alone would be well worth the effort. It's a money printing machine. But money isn't everything in this case. Adding a new weapon would actually help CS2 compete with Valorant in a more direct way. Valorant has the luxury of being a hero shooter, so on top of maps and skins, Riot gets to add new characters with new abilities that gives people a reason to come back to the game, and they can do that basically whenever they want. Now, obviously, Valve can't release guns as often as Riot releases agents, but even if we get one new weapon in the next 5 years, it's a pretty massive addition for a series known for its moderation. What I mean is, outside of everything that's coming to CS2, Valve doesn't really do big, grandiose changes. They don't even really like doing small ones. And sure, we don't need a new gun by any means. The current roster is one of the most iconic in the history of gaming. But maybe that's why people like me actually want a new gun in the first place. Adding a new gun would be even bigger than adding a new map. It would change the DNA of the game forever. Valve adding a new gun wouldn't just bring people back to try it out. It would create buzz, start conversations, create a cult following of people that only use the new weapon in CS2. It would change everything. Does that mean that Valve is going to do it? No, not necessarily, but some people seem convinced. Ever since Valve made the massive change to CS2's loadout, tons of community members came under the impression that it was actually their sneaky way of making room for new additions to the arsenal. Since you could now hot swap weapons, why not add even more? Now, while I do see the logic there, I think it's a bit of a stretch. There's a ton of new cosmetics coming, and I think this was Valve's way of just adding a UI update. That being said, it does give me just enough evidence to talk about what CS2's new gun could be. Now, I know I'm not alone in this reasoning, but I think there is only one option that makes sense. A T-sided semi-automatic rifle that operates very much like Valorant's Guardian, and it sits in between the AK-47 and the Galil. So, why a rifle? Well, it's kind of the only one that fits right now. Counter-Strike's pistols pretty much hit all the spots, and although I thought about something like a shorty, adding a Zeus on steroids would probably be a bad idea. On top of that, no one really uses shotguns or LMGs, and when it comes to SMGs, honestly speaking, there already might be too many. So to me, a rifle seems like the best fit, and making it semi-automatic will make it different enough from the Galil and the AK. And it. Valorant has taken so many things from Counter-Strike. I think we should get something in return. Now, as I mentioned, I do believe a gun like this would only be suited for the T side, because in my head, while having a low rate of fire, it still provides one-shot headshots from most ranges. And while damage drop-off can be played around with to help balance it in between the other two T rifles, having an accurate one-shot headshot rifle on CT side is just not possible. If they really wanted to, they could technically add two weapons like this, and one of them just has a much lower damage output, but since the CTs already have access to the A1S and A4 and the Ts have just the AK, I don't really think it's necessary. I don't know about you guys, I've seen it online, but I really love this idea. But for fairness, I've been trying to think about a reason outside of balancing why Valve wouldn't go for something like this. And I can only really think of one. The AK-47 and its one-tap potential is one of the most iconic parts of not just Counter-Strike, but gaming in general. And adding a gun that is basically built to do that exact thing could take away from its mythos. It may seem silly, but I think there's a very deliberate reason why the R8 is dog shit in comparison to the Deagle. That being said, I'm still hopeful. The AK will always be the AK to me, and adding a FN FAL or an SKS won't take away from its ability to both tap heads and spray multiple people down. But that is just my opinion. Listen, we are on the doorstep of a new era of Counter-Strike, and Valve is open to pretty much adding whatever they want. It doesn't even have to be a gun. That being said, I would love to see a new rifle in the game, and I'm curious what you guys think. Is there a gun or piece of utility or item you want to see in the game? Or are you one of those CS purists who hate anything new and anything fun? Let me know. Valve, whenever they do something new with their games, they always like to add a new feature that shows off what they're able to do with their new physics or lighting engines. And obviously the big one is the smoke grenades. So the question is will Valve add something to the game that has more to do to play around with the smokes? You know what they should add? The Cypher trip mine. That would instantly ruin the game, and they should add it. Or a Cypher cam. Yes. Add Cypher to the game, and people just be on their phones the whole game.